What is surprisingly safe for human consumption? Had a severely alcoholic patient drink 2 large bottles of mouthwash Listerine etc. every day for about 15 years. You had think nearly 10,000 bottles of mouthwash would kill a man. But number at least. Not very quickly. His gut health probably sucked. But his breath was fresh and minty. A whole box of Nivea cream apparently. I ate an entire box of Nivea cream when I was a toddler and the only after effect was that my poop smelled nice for a while. You can eat everything inside of a natural beehive, including the bees. Just don't get stung. When I had my gallbladder removed a few months ago, the doc told me, apropos of nothing, I could eat the stones they let me keep. I mean, I guess they are mostly cholesterol, so it makes sense. I am so jealous. They wouldn't let me keep mine. I got mine out when I was 12. I am 25 now and have nothing by which to remember my short-lived pain in the ass gallbladder. You enjoy those stones, but don't eat them. That's extremely cursed, and I can't believe the doc said that lol. Ballistal. It is a general purpose oil for lubrication and rust protection, and can be used for metal, wood, and leather. It is completely safe to drink, and it even smells like licorice. Some indigenous tribes eat clay in small amounts due to the minerals and texture. I have 2 cousins adopted from a Haitian orphanage. The orphanage basically took lard and mixed it with small amounts of dirt to feed to the kids. I imagine it was more filler than any notable benefits. But still, crazy to think about. At some level it makes sense, in that we do take mineral supplements people often know, but don't internalize the fact that the iron we eat is actually 100% that. But the idea these mud cookies are ever used to fill tummies is depressing as heck. Animals with rabies. Just avoid the saliva glands in that general area. Source: asked our virus professor, because a fellow student took a bite out of a dead raccoon. Pokeweed is edible if cooked properly. I remember my blessed dad made poke salad. He said the idea is to cook most of the poison out, but leave enough for your lips to tingle. It was a popular depression food eaten by my family as late as the 70s. They called it poke salad rather than salad. It contains a water-soluble poison that will chemically burn your mouth. Boil it in water. Rinse it in cold water. Then cook it. It is like spinach or turnip greens but more fibrous. These threads always blow my mind. My grandma made poke salad until she passed away in 2008. I was never a fan, the smell did that to me, but it was something she made every year. They did go poke hunting, gather it, and cook it. I just assumed it was an ordinary meal like anything else. Petroleum jelly, small amounts have been used as laxative and stool softener. Some packing peanuts are actually made out of cornstarch. They of course are not produced in a food safe environment, and all of the nutritional components like sugars are removed so as not to attract bugs. But yeah, most styrofoam peanuts are edible. The ones that are not made of cornstarch, though, are made of polystyrene, a petroleum-based plastic. So definitely do your research before you decide to sample some packing peanuts. Charcoal. Well, not the one you had buy for BBQs, but medical charcoal has a similar composition and is not only safe, but awesome at cleaning up some unfortunate gastrointestinal interlopers. It will also slap up the good stuff such as medication. Stinging nettles. Stinging nettles are ducking delicious. I started foraging for them about a year and a half ago, and they are fantastic. Filled with all kinds of vitamins and minerals too. So they are a superfood. Just make sure you soak them for 20 plus minimums, if having them raw, or cook them first, to remove the stings. And they are bastards to pick and prepare regardless, as really you only want the top shoots and leaves, not the stems. But yep, they grow virtually year round here in the UK, and you can also ret the fibers to make rope and cloth from the stems. So we really should use the plant much more than we do, especially as it is a fast growing weed in many places. Also, do not pick them if they are flowering or seeding, as apparently they get crystals build up which can irritate the bladder and kidneys. But you can constantly crop the top off, so they never flower, and get a year-long source of free salad leads greens. Dog cat food. The FDA requires pet food to be human grade because during the Depression, So many desperate people died from eating pet food. Fun story, back in 1987 I hiked around the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and met a few hikers who recommended carrying a pound or so of dry dog food as emergency rations. The idea was that you would never have otters as a first choice, but if you were that hungry due to miscalculations, you could eat it to get you through to the next stop. For those of you asking, why not a pound of human food? The idea is that you have something only for emergencies that you would not want unless it is an emergency. Jerky is actually pretty high value, and at the end of, or during, a day of hiking uphill and down dale, you would totally go ahead and eat it. But with dog food, as in the Terry Pratchett quote below, you look at it and think of literally anything else for food, and a pound or so is an arbitrary amount. Just take however much makes sense. Once in a while a guy could break an ankle or otherwise injure yourself, which makes it harder to forage. So it is nice to eat. Edit for those asking why dog food, it was just a recommendation. And it was 1987. We were using external frame packs. MREs were hella expensive. And RE was not really a thing yet. A lot of the hikers I was with were wearing gigantic cleated hiking boots that weighed like 4 pounds each. And if you bent over, a dinosaur ran up behind you and bit you in the ass. Things are way better now. American soldiers in World War II had a similar thing, an intentionally ruined recipe for chocolate. No one wanted to eat it, but everyone had some. So they would eat normal food until they were away from supply lines for too long. Then it would save them from starvation. Because it did not matter how something tasted, just that it kept them alive. Caffeine. That stuff plants evolved to make it so nothing could eat them. It kills most other creatures. Meanwhile us humans are like Zoom. Funnily enough, the red berries of a yew tree, the seeds contained inside of the berries, the needles, the branches and the roots are all deadly poisonous. But the berries are sweet and delicious. I recommend not eating them, because if you bite on the seed contained within it's bad news. Insects. Most insects are not only edible, but also very nutritious. On a totally separate note, there was going to be a cloud of locusts here in Brazil. I plan to eat them. If they eat the plants, they are also very efficient. I think I have seen somewhere that crickets are 60% protein. Meaning if you eat 100 g of crickets, that is 60 g of protein, whereas eating 100 g of beef is only like 30 g of protein. They also do not require as much to feed, unlike cows, which is great for the environment. Too bad I cannot get over the hump of eating insects. One of my great obsessions in life is to think of who was the first person to eat something. Like who was the first to see a white hard thing come out of a chicken and decide to crack it open. See a gooey mess, yet still see what would happen if you heated it up. And after all that, have the balls to eat it. Same goes for mushrooms. Like, did people just keep eating them until they figured out which ones killed you, which ones made you trip balls, and which tasted great with steak? Cashews. They are as poisonous as poison ivy, and almost every part of the plant will hurt you until it goes through a rigorous steaming and boiling process. I don't know what psychopath decided they would force cashews to become edible, but it worked. Not really. The nuts themselves must be boiled or roasted, but the apples could be sliced up and eaten raw or with some salt and chili pepper. Ah yes, the apples must be ripe as well, as the young ones just leave a very sticky and sanding taste in your mouth. Sauce grew up on a cashew plantation in Vietnam. At least chemically speaking, one of the types of plastic my 3D printer can produce things out of, the stuff they make Legos out of, is toxic. But PBA plat is entirely non-toxic. I imagine it would hurt a lot going through as it has a lot of jagged edges, but technically not going to do much harm if a kid gnaws on it. Crocs. One of the original selling points was that, due to them being made with 100% non-toxic materials, you could boil the shoes and eat them should you find yourself stranded in the woods. I have not tried them, but I would imagine they taste as bad as they look. Kudzu. We see it as a pest when in reality we should be farming the shit. The foliage makes great grazing for animals, and it grows massive 50-pound tubers. Given that it takes almost no effort to grow, it seems like a perfect farm crop. I can confirm. I have kudzu growing in my backyard. It's quite a nuisance. In my experience, you want to eat the young newer leaves. It tastes like and is pretty much interchangeable with spinach. I have 2 goats to help control it. They love it. I have not tried the tubers. Dandelions. Most folks see them as just weeds, but they are completely safe to eat and actually quite healthy. The leaves can be eaten raw or cooked like spinach. The roots can be peeled and boiled into soup or tea, and the flowers can be made into wine and jelly or eaten by themselves. Koi fish. It's like eating carp. The myth of not being able to eat koi probably comes from not being able to eat goldfish, which is also a myth. Avocados are pretty weird when you consider the fact that they are super poisonous to just about every animal that is not a human. Hydrogen peroxide. I found out this tasteless liquid is used to induce vomit in certain situations and can be digested. I learned this during Hurricane Irma in Florida. My wife decided to put it in a unlabeled water bottle next to other water bottles. We had no electricity and I was thirsty. About 3-4 into the bottle, foam started coming out of my ears and eyes, and all I can smell was the slightly stinky foot aroma it gives off. I called poison control and they assured me I would not die. I would not recommend it though. Doesn't this eventually break down to H2O, or did I make that up? Yes. Hydrogen peroxide is fairly unstable and turns into water and oxygen. We also have enzymes that speed up this process. The famous chef, salt before anyone else, serves a steak at his restaurant entirely covered in gold. It cost around $770. The gold goes through your body, since it doesn't react with the stomach acid and you don't have any enzyme able to digest it. It comes out as it came in. I guess that means rich people shit gold after all. Mercury can actually be consumed. However, if there is anything in your gastrointestinal system that could allow it to be absorbed into your blood, you had get heavy mental poisoning. So you can, but it is heavily advised you do not, for obvious reasons. I'm talking about elemental mercury, not any sort of alloy or compound. Repeated exposure will give you poisoning. According to my wife's former agriculture professor and experience at that college thereafter, Roundup glyphosate, an unfortunate mix-up led to a student drinking Roundup, everyone freaking out and calling the professor, and now it's apparently school tradition to pee your name into the football field after drinking Roundup. If your nutrition facts say it contains iron, that is not some code word. You are literally eating metal. Food that is fortified with iron basically just has iron dust sprinkled in. Crush up some Cheerios, wave a magnet over it, you will pick up iron dust. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.